Today, almost everyone interested in motorcycle themes knows that BMW has long been famous for its signature opposed twin engine. In the 90s, to regain superbike racing glory, this company built a secret vehicle based on the legendary Boxer with telelever paralever suspensions and, importantly, a desmodromic timing mechanism for enhanced performance. Before building this motorcycle, BMW had stayed away from racing for a whole 15 years while Ducati with their desmodromic V-twins gradually started to dominate superbike racing. In 1990, Raymond Roche ends Honda's 2-year dominance, which is not surprising considering the regulations allowed them to have 2 cylinders with a 250 cubic centimeter larger capacity, as well as a minimum allowable weight of 140 kilograms compared to 165 for 4s and triples. Looking at this, especially recalling the past glory of racers who raced on their Battler N. Smith R90S and won both the first Daytona Superbike race and the first AMA Superbike title, the company is betting on the revival of the Boxer. Burkhardt, technical director at BMW Motorrad, assigns his team to develop a superbike that would utilize the signature liquid-cooled twin-cylinder opposed engine, aiming to create a competitive rival to Ducati's powerful engines. In 1990, alongside the release of the air-oil-cooled engine, also known as Oilhead, BMW's chief engineer Heinz Heger and his R&D team decided to create a second, completely new water-cooled engine version labeled R1, but with a displacement of 1000 cubic centimeters for the superbike regulations. First and foremost, to increase ground clearance and ensure the cylinders didn't hinder cornering, the engine was significantly raised. The crankshaft was positioned at a height of 520 mm above the ground. At the same time, Hegi and his team rotated the horizontal Boxer cylinders by 90 degrees to provide a more ergonomic position for riding. Now, the exhaust is not in front of the cylinder but underneath, thanks to the modified engine architecture. The intake, previously behind the cylinder, where it often interfered with the rider's legs and required them to adjust the seat, now logically rests on top. These were a pair of 54mm throttle bodies equipped with TPS position sensors, which were connected to Bosch EFI system. Air was supplied through vertical channels from an air chamber installed in the front part of the fuel tank. The tank itself went just a little bit under the seat. In addition, as we have already stated, this engine had a desmodromic valve system. Burkhardt insisted on the drivetrain, as he had previously worked with the Mercedes-Benz W196 GP, which utilized this system and was an ultra-successful machine in the 50s. Gale was convinced that it was thanks to the desmodromic design, its reliability, and the high revs, meaning more power, that Ducati's team managed to dominate in races. It was the sole alternative to the traditional spring system, as pneumatic drive had not been utilized in motorsport, and constructing such a motorcycle implied its mid-range model, which would be an expensive luxury with pneumatic drive. Therefore, BMW expert Georg Emmersberger was focused on developing and designing a cylinder head with pairs of titanium valves, 38mm intake and 33mm exhaust ports for the R1, set at a very shallow angle of just 20 degrees. The crankshaft, to which a pair of Pankel titanium connecting rods were attached, each of which had forged Marley pistons with 2 rings, had a half-intermediate shaft installed beneath it. This in turn resulted in the fact that double chains were used to operate the 2 lower exhaust camshafts, and the secondary chain of each head drove the starter lever. Modular layout copied conical drive in Rainsport 500 Boxer GP engine from BMW, which placed second in 1956 GP World Championship and won 19 GP titles in 21 years. Last year he won 19 titles. He competed in Jeep karts for a 20-year period. To accommodate the engine, BMW ordered specialized chassis made of aluminum alloy from the Dutch guru Nico Becker. The suspension was also unique in sports. It was the same paralever-telelever as in the R models. The motorcycle was also equipped with Brembo braking system and 17-inch wheels from Marvi. And thanks to the heavy drive shaft and engine placement, the weight of the motorcycle approached a 50-50 ratio. And the weight of the motorcycle was almost in order. Moreover, expert Ches Smith made an original fairing and fuel tank from aluminum, while BMW made them from carbon fiber. The motorcycle was completed in the spring of 1992. As the engineers claimed, the engine was able to produce 140 horsepower at the wheel, but this was not sufficient for competitive performance. According to them, they needed around 20 more horsepower. But the real reason why this motorcycle remained a museum exhibit was the vibration. The engine felt lively with a smooth and soft revving, but at around 10,500 revolutions per minute, vibration increased, leading to a risk of cracks forming in the frame. And although this was not identified during testing, the project was still cancelled because competing with such vibration was simply impossible. Lastly, some info on the motorcycle's track behavior. The front telelever fork made it challenging to handle the motorcycles in turns at low speeds. But when braking, it actually helped, as this type of suspension never dives like telescopic forks, for example. Also, the motorcycle is not particularly convenient on corners due to the high-mounted opposed engine, despite the trendy frame from Becker. There were also easily solvable yet still problems with cooling, because the small radiators on the sides of the engine barely coped with their task. Even in cool weather, the engine temperature was around 100 degrees, and on straightaways it stayed at 90 degrees. A production model would require, at the very least, additional forced cooling. Otherwise, the motorcycle was fully competitive. Furthermore, later the Superbike regulations were modified, and all engine types were assigned a minimum weight of 165 kilograms. And considering the fact that the winning prototype of the 1992 Ducati produced 134 horsepower, it is quite possible that we lost a potential winning motorcycle. And if BMW had completed this project, so to speak, rounded all the edges, it would have been interesting to see Ducati's reaction when another two-cylinder desmodromic racer, a German one, appeared on the market.